Hi there, friends. You're going to be so glad that you hit play on this interview today. I'm about to have a conversation with two of the producers from Kingdom Story. That is the film studio that most recently brought us the wonderful movie called Jesus Revolution. I hope you have seen it. We're going to talk about that some today, but mostly we're going to talk about their brand new movie coming out in October called Ordinary Angels. It is a wonderful story about a community that wraps its arms around a very needy family. It stars Hilary Swank. It's spectacular. You're going to love it. Ultimately, it's a story about organ donation, which is close to many hearts. And I know that you'll want to recommend this brand new movie to all your friends after you have seen it. So stay tuned for this chat today with Andy Irwin and Kevin Downs, two of the producers on this wonderful new film. My name is Jean Thomason, and this is Momentum Influencers Network. Hey there, friends, and as promised, here we are live. How fun in the studio with the producers of the brand new film we're going to talk about called Ordinary Angels. Please greet with me Kevin Downs and Andy Irwin, the producers of the film. Hi.
Jean, it is
Welcome.
so good to be with you. I'm just
We're-
here to absorb your energy. It's amazing.
I'm over the moon, just thanking God for what you have done, which some of these people know many of the things that you guys have already created, but this brand new film is just spectacular, and I laughed and I cried, and so I can't wait to hear you talk about it. And I think the first question I have for you is, how did you even find out about this true story? How'd you find out about Ed and Sharon?
So Kevin's the one that has really championed this from the beginning with our director John Gunn, and we've done a series of movies that have really kind of resonated with the audience, from I Can Only Imagine to most recently Jesus Revolution. But this one was one when it just caught us off guard, and so Kevin was involved from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, after we did the movie I Can Only Imagine, we signed what's called like an overall deal with our partner Lionsgate, which is a big studio in Hollywood, and they were the distributor of I Can Only Imagine. And usually, like what's traditional is we take projects to them and we pitch, and they say yes, hopefully, which they've done quite a few times. In this case, they pitched us, which
cool.
is crazy when you think about it. A Hollywood studio pitched us a concept that actually worked. So the fact that they actually understood what our audience is and what kind of content they're really interested in, like that stuff just doesn't happen. And so when they pitched us Ordinary Angels, we were like, wait a minute. Pastor Dave Stone in Southeast Christian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. We know him.
Yeah, he's a friend.
This is such a small world. In fact, one of our partners, Tony Young, he goes to that church.
Amazing.
And so the world is so small. And so what makes it even more interesting is that Lionsgate, it was brought to them by one of our producing partners on the film. His name's John Berg. And he's produced lots of big movies. Elf was a huge movie.
Yeah.
The first Wonder Woman. John Berg's big producer. Anyway, one of his friends from the first job he ever had in Hollywood. It was a small little production company like ours, Kingdom Story Company. It was like that. And that individual's name was Nathan Kahane, who was the president at Lionsgate. And so John brought this film to Nathan. Nathan fell in love with the story and the fact that it really just uplifted the human spirit, right?
Yes.
And how organic that was in the true story that was being told. Well, then the next question is how did John Berg get this story? And that's crazy. So John Berg was the co-president of production at Warner Brothers about 10 years ago. And one day he tells his assistant, he goes, he's self-aware enough to know, he's a producer first and kind of a studio guy second. He goes, I probably won't be in this job too much longer. Is there anybody in the world you would love to meet? And his assistant goes, Dave Matthews. And Dave Matthews, the musician. Right. And so John goes, Dave Matthews? He was thinking like some actor or something like that. He's like, okay, let's call Dave Matthews and see if he wants to come in. And he did. And so John's thinking it's going to be a meet and greet. Mm-hmm. Dave Matthews comes in and pitches this movie.
No way!
Yeah, and I'm like, how did Dave Matthews get a hold of this?
Amazing.
And it's just something I think he saw because there were news clips about it when the event happened, and he just absolutely fell in love with it. And so it's one of those things where no matter what you do, of course, Dave Matthews isn't historically a movie producer,
Right.
but this story captured his heart in such a way that it was undeniable, and he didn't give up. And look, all this, 10 years later, 12 years later, it's now a major motion picture with a 2-time Academy Award winner, which is amazing. Hilary Swank is so wonderful in this film. She gives a performance that just melts your heart and really captures the true essence of who Sharon is, and who is just a go-getter and a fighter and a lover of the human spirit.
Which is my next question was, how did you get all these A-list actors to be in this
God,
movie?
it's
God,
literally-
yeah,
no,
God.
seriously, because we're not smart enough to
Yes.
do this. I mean, seriously, it was amazing how it came to be.
Man.
And one afternoon, John Gunn, the director, and I can remember it vividly. I was at one of my son's baseball games and looking at this long list from our casting director, and just like, okay, who really fits this, and who just has the right essence and dynamic of who Sharon was. And when Hillary's name crossed, I love her
Yeah,
performances.
we were like, can we get her?
And I'm like, is this even real? And
Yeah.
so
Wow.
when I Googled Hillary, as far as did anything come up that was similar to what our story is, there was a story that popped up that had to do with her dad and the fact that he had an organ transplant. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's what our story's about. And so I talked to John Gunn, and I'm like, hey, what do you think of Hilary Swank? He goes, dude, I was just researching her. That's crazy. Do you think we could get her? And I said, why don't you write a letter? And so John wrote this beautiful letter, and we sent it to her representatives. And lo and behold, she responded. And it was because of the organ transplant component. She's like, you know what? I could see myself giving into my energy into this project in a way that really is significant. It means something to me. And she just gives her all. She's a beautiful person. Beautiful person. I would work with her again in a heartbeat.
And it's a special performance too. What
Oh,
John Gunn, the director, who's written, a lot of our stuff from, Jesus Revolution to American Underdogs, to I Still Believe, and has directed movies like Case for Christ, like this phenomenal filmmaker. And working with Hilary Swank, it's a special performance. Like, she really brings texture to this thing. I think the thing that I love so much about what John is able to do as a filmmaker and working with an actress like Hilary Swank is he takes the essence of Christianity and he puts it on, the bottom shelf where it's accessible to anyone. And the idea of the purest version of Christianity is Jesus said is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then the people asked him, well, who is my neighbor? And he gave this amazing story of the Good Samaritan. And it's the least likely person you think would be the good neighbor. And Hillary is that kind of Good Samaritan, this story of this down and out, struggling hairdresser, struggling with her own, addictions, but falls in love with this little girl, Michelle, that needs an organ transplant, and becomes this unlikely angel in her story to rally this whole church community around her during the worst blizzard in Kentucky history to try to get her an organ transplant. And it's just, it's a story that is absolutely Christianity at its purest form.
First of all, she killed the Southern accent. She
Yeah.
was just amazing.
She did, didn't she?
Yeah, she really did. I mean,
She
she
did.
is the ultimate pro. I mean, it's like what we learned early on is she wasn't going to say yes unless she knew she would make it good.
Yeah.
And you could tell just the way that she prepped for it, and it was really special. The thing I like the most about this film is you look at the title, Ordinary Angels. And so when we've had some pastors around the country do initial screenings of the film, and they come back and their feedback is, here's what I love about your movie. This movie represents everyone in my congregation, in my community.
Absolutely.
And where they can have an example through a true story of how they can be an ordinary angel in their community. We love that. It's like, this is why we're making movies, is to be able to inspire communities in such a way to be better humans. Because sometimes all it takes is just saying, how are you doing today, to your neighbor? And then all of a sudden this huge conversation comes out of it, and you never know what can happen.
Well, which leads me to what you guys love to say, which I wrote down because I thought it was brilliant. Hollywood is not the hope of the world. The
Church.
local church, the local church is the hope of the world. And that I felt like as a takeaway
Yep.
was at least it was for me. And I know that's what you must
Yep.
hope for people to take away.
It's exciting to see where, we've traditionally at Kingdom Story Company have leaned into telling true stories. Because there's something really powerful in not just saying this is a nice fictional idea. This
Right.
is something that really happened. So when we do a movie like Jesus Revolution and we kind of show the power of what God did in revival in the 70s, to see, 4,000 people coming back twice, two different occasions, to be baptized. Kevin was out there helping baptize people. And so
did
it was
you?
just when it kind of those things collide, it's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't plan on it. I mean, it was Pirates Cove. At the time, was living like 20 minutes away from there, and so I'm like, I'm really curious, who shows up to this? Is it just people in Orange County in Southern California? And so I went to the top and kind of watched for about 30 minutes, and there were about 4,000 people there.
Unbelievable.
I mean, the line was, I don't know, 500 yards long just to walk over the rocks and get into the cove. And at some point, I'm like, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to see what happens. And so I knew some of the pastors that were down there helping out, local pastors. And what happened blew my mind. I mean, to hear the stories of where people had come from. It was almost like a pilgrimage. I mean, this one young woman, she took a bus over 18 hours just to get there. And then I think a taxi when she got close enough. Because she really believed that God put it on her heart that there's a new birth and a new awakening that's going to happen for you, and you need to go to Pirates Cove on this day and make it happen. She goes, here I am. Now what do I do? And I look at my pastor friend, and he looks at me, and like we led her out into the water, and we talked, and we prayed with her, and we baptized her, and that was one of many stories that happened that afternoon. God really blessed me through that, to be able to see these people and so many stories that were just extraordinary, all stemmed from a call to action that came obviously through Greg Laurie and his ministry, but that started with the movie, right? The movie, somehow how the power of these motion pictures can have such an impact on people, real people, that changes their life in such a dramatic way that there's this moment in time that they have that goes, you know what? I'm going to change my life right now. I'm going to accept Christ into my heart. Today is a new day, right? And all of a sudden, I'm going to go forward, and to be a part of that is so humbling. I mean, it really is. I had tears kind of walking back to my car, and I try to keep it like low, like so that people don't know who I am. But then word kind of got out, and people kind of want pictures with you and whatnot. And but it was just a beautiful experience.
Incredible.
And really a button for us as filmmakers. It takes so long to make a movie.
Yeah.
And sometimes movies don't want to get made because all these events happen. I mean, even in Ordinary Angels, the blizzard of the century. We did not shoot it in Louisville, Kentucky, because normally there's not snow in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right.
And we needed snow. So we went up to Winnipeg in Canada, which gets lots of snow and is very cold. And it just so happens, I was actually talking to our local Canadian producer this morning, and we were reminiscing about the week in Winnipeg when we were shooting this film, and the blizzard of the century for central Canada descended upon Winnipeg. It was not only cold, but so much snow fell that all the freeways shut down right in the middle of it, and we had to navigate our way around it. We're like, okay, is this life imitating art or the other way around?
Right.
It was very interesting. But anyway, it was a beautiful experience to be able to bring this thing to life.
So there were so many kind of miraculous moments like that you already have talked about how you even found out about the story.
Yeah.
And in bringing it all to you. So during the production, did you have any kind of great God moments that you want to
That
share?
was one. I mean, we were wondering, first of all, our actors had other commitments following our last day of filming. Alan Richson, for example, he had to fly to Europe. He plays Ed, the lead male character. And so the next day after we were to wrap, he had to fly to Europe to shoot on a little movie called Fast 10. And
Fast and Furious.
Fast and the Furious, yeah. And so, that's like a $300 million movie or whatever the big budget was. And so we felt a little bit of pressure, like, okay, we got to get him out of here on time. How are we going to make this happen? And so there were that week there was a lot of miracles because the weather reports and the government was saying, look, we got to shut everything. People can't even go on the roads for a week.
Wow.
That was the word that we were getting. But we figured out a way to open the roads, to get the government to support for us to continue to motor on and to be able to stay on schedule. That, for me, that was like, okay, that was a miracle. I'm not even sure how that happened. But it was just like our story. It was so weird.
It was just like
I
your
know, it was
story.
so
That's
weird.
amazing.
I know.
Well, you've already said some of what you hope audience will take away, but do you have any further just if you want to put a bow on the top of it? Well, and before I even ask you that questions, I have to say the little girls were
Yeah,
amazing.
they were
Amazing.
I just,
Sweet
it
kids.
was very, very
Sweet
sweet.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Really
yeah,
powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. I mean, it's you know, we just came out of releasing our movie Jesus Revolution,
Yes.
and we're so glad that so many people enjoyed that film. And I say this all the time. It's like, look, it's because of you guys that we're able to continue to make more
Yep.
stories.
Right.
It truly is. And this is a perfect example is Ordinary Angels. I mean, we had shot the movie, but we didn't necessarily have a release date for it. And so like the next week after Jesus Revolution opened, Lionsgate gave us a call and we're like celebrating, like, woo! Yeah. And they're like, let's talk about Ordinary Angels.
Wow, the next week.
The next week, and we're like, let's figure out what the right date is. But it was because everybody stormed the theaters that opening weekend and were fed and were ministered by the story of Jesus Revolution.
Right,
But then look at the
exactly.
impact it has further down the road. It's incredible, and I love that about this. So I continue to say, look, if you love our movies and you love the stories that we're developing and bringing to you, storm the theaters, be the light.
Be the light.
In your community and
That's
bring
right.
people to the theaters, and it'll have this impact that will go beyond Ordinary Angels.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing, Gene, that's exciting is the audience has never had so much power with their ticket.
That's great.
You know, when we decided to release Jesus Revolution, it was the boldest thing that we had ever done as a company. And then John, my brother, had really crafted this story that took some bold swings. And you know, the industry, the studio execs we had talked to were like, we don't know if dramas are coming back in theaters, much less anything with faith. And so when people showed up and voted with their ticket,
Yes.
the studio jumped up and was like, let's do 3 more. And then on top of that, we see what God's done with Sound of Freedom this year and so
Right.
many others. There's been just time after time where it's blown the doors wide open now to where it's not even about fighting for the kind of content we make. They're just like, do whatever you want. And so the audience continuing to show up and voting with their ticket, inviting their neighbors, using it as an outreach opportunity for the local church, all those things, that perpetuates 5 more. And so if you want to continue to see content like this,
Right.
show up at the theater, invite your community, and make it an event.
And we will try to not let you down. We will
Yeah.
continue to mine these extraordinary true stories that
Beautiful.
literally showcase the power of the gospel.
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing about this one is Ordinary Angels. Absolutely, John Gunn stuck the landing. He delivers.
He did.
And this film is like it's the highest testing film that we've ever been a part of, and so we're so excited to bring this to the theater.
Thank you so much. And after having already seen it, I can't wait for all of you, my friends, to grab a ticket, vote with your ticket, go and see this. Take your family to go see this movie. It will bless you. It will minister to you. It's a real raw story, very raw, emotion, lots of beautiful emotions, and the actors just couldn't have done a better job. And thank you.
Ordinary Angels. We'll see you there.